Hey, everybody. Welcome to SF Indie Fest. We're glad to have you here for the Q&A for our closing night film, Puppy Love. It's a good bit of a weird world we live in, and I don't think any of us anticipated to be in this kind of virtual format, but the kind of punk rock film festival we kind of go along and do it no matter what. So we're lucky enough to have Michael Maxis here, director and writer of Puppy Love. So thanks again, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the selection, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, well, I think there are so many elements of your film that kind of just represent the sorts of stories and aesthetics that we like at the at SF Indie Fest, and I'd love to kind of hear more about how it came together. I think there's a kind of an interesting backstory to the film that this was kind of inspired by what your cousin's life or situation. Can you give us a little bit of like what inspired you kind of put pen to paper to knock out the script and make this film?
Yeah, I'll try not to go on too long because it's without a doubt a long story that leads to getting your first film made. But I actually was directing music videos for a number of years, always with the intention of transitioning into music videos. And when I was 30, I decided, okay, it's time to focus on films. And I learned that it's an extremely complex and challenging transition. There's so much different from music videos. So I had to start really learning really a new trade. It's sort of the difference between being an electrician and a carpenter. You work in the same kind of field, but it's a totally different skill. And I also learned that no one's going to hand me a great script. So I realized I had to write. So I bought every screenwriting book I could and just read scripts. And I started writing a screenplay based on the Danny character in the film, actually, a completely different script. He's a little bit more rough around the edges, tough, kind of barroom brawling type guy. And he has a true story of his own that I was really interested in. So I struggled to write that, I should say, for a couple of years. And I just couldn't really get it to a point that felt good. And I showed it around to some agents in Los Angeles. And one of them gave me some really inspiring advice. And it's not advice everyone probably wants to hear, but it really affected me. And he said, first of all, the script's okay, but there's no way you can be made for under $20 million. And no one is going to give you $20 million. I don't care what music videos you've done for a first film. So the advice I have for you is write a script you can shoot for $1 million. And if you can't raise $1 million, you don't belong in the game. So I took it to heart and went back to Edmonton, Canada, where all my wild relatives live, and started digging around for a story that could be made for around $1 million. And this one is inspired by my cousin Morgan, who's Danny's younger brother. And he told me this story that I found to be really moving and touching and insightful. That would lend itself to some offbeat comedy, which is really true to me and my sensibilities that I felt I could make in my hometown and for a reasonable budget. And that's what brings us to this film here and the screening at SF Indie Fest.
What was it about your cousin's life that kind of was it the kind of unique circumstances, the kind of scenario that we see kind of depicted in Puppy Love, or was it kind of his personality? Or
Yeah, it's all the above. He's a very unique character who just has a natural charisma about him, and he's very idiomatic. Everything he says is sort of embedded with this wisdom, even though it can seem inane at first on the surface, and then you meditate on it, and it's almost like there's some sort of inspired voice or wise voice that's sort of speaking through him. It's filtering away all the bullshit through his simplicity, and it just felt natural. It felt like a love story. As soon as I heard it that he was paying a prostitute just to be his friend, as a guy that never had any friends, he saw an opportunity to get one. He saw a different service available from prostitutes than we conventionally, associate with them. And I just thought it was really cute. And when I'd share it with people, they all felt the same way. And yeah, I just loved it, and it seemed like a natural inspiration for a film.
neat. And I think there's definitely something so the kind of independent film scenario of just basically making something happen. What do you think filming in Edmonton? What do you think it allowed you to kind of like either stretch your resources or even bring kind of a unique flavor on screen? Like, was it kind of challenging being in this place that you were so familiar with, or were you kind of inspired because you knew all this kind of nitty gritty
Yeah,
stuff?
great question, actually. It was important to me to shoot in my hometown. I'm just have a sort of, I think, maybe a loyal nature, and I really wanted to do it there. So I was fortunate enough to know it well, but I wrote it in Edmonton. I'd go, 3, 4 times a week to the local hot tubs and community swimming pools and observe people and make notes. It was very leisurely writing
Mhm.
process. And then I would just, my girlfriend and I would do it a lot together as well, and strike up conversations, and she'd be taking notes, and then drive around afterwards and location scout and take photos. And every single character in this film, every extra was cast. Almost all of them I cast myself in shopping malls and flea markets over a course of like 6 months. I would just be constantly going places and seeing interesting people and get their contact info and follow up, and all this supporting cast and sort of decorative character people in this film are all hand picked through street casting. Myself really doing it, going up and down shopping malls, looking at people too long, and if I could see something, I'd go up and approach them and get their contact info. So that was great to have all that time to slowly prepare it, and then to shoot in a place I was familiar. That was where the true story happened. It really helped the actors get into character, to sort of get to spend that time in those local bars, up those local streets. There's a lot of benefits. Edmonton, like many small cities, is not a film hub, so you get unique challenges when you shoot in a city that doesn't have the infrastructure for film. It doesn't really have much experienced crew. It doesn't have the gear you need. So you have to bring so much stuff in. So it ends up costing you a lot of money, actually. Everything you save through my relationships and all the groundwork that was done, you kind of burn off having to
Mm.
import so much stuff and extra people in to do it. But there's nowhere I would have rather shot it. And the Canadian government and the Alberta government have some really great incentives for independent film through grants and tax
Mm.
credits. Um, Another thing I was thinking of in answer to your last question as to why I also did this film, was Morgan as this underdog character is very inspiring, just innately. And I grew up very mainstream. I did not grow up exposed to independent music or film or art or photography or anything. I grew up going to Stallone and Van Damme and Mel Gibson movies in the theaters, and Tom Cruise. And I discovered, so that's there's a core, a foundation of that kind of film inside me. And I was very, very inspired as a kid by Rocky. And of course, when I was a teenager, I discovered independent film and became completely obsessed and distracted by it. And, the likes of John Waters and Todd Solondz and Alex Cox, and, the list goes on. But with this film, I kind of wanted to do a blend. I wanted an alternative aesthetic, but with that kind of mainstream sentimentality or inspiration. I feel like for me as a filmmaker, I want to to make work that inspires people, that they can maybe learn from and be motivated from in a subtle way without hitting them over the head with it. And that's something I found with Morgan, is that he imparts this rare and unique wisdom on people. And to me, that's probably the most important element in the film.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention it because before seeing the film, just kind of reading the setup and seeing a clip online or whatnot, I was wondering, I wonder how uncomfortable a movie this is going to be, and obviously there are some uncomfortable aspects, but not for the sense that you don't want to kind of immerse yourself in this world, and part of it, I think, is there's kind of a genuineness, I think that you see in the interactions with the characters and also on screen, which it's interesting that so many of the kind of supporting cast are kind of like people off the street. I mean, as a filmmaker, when you go,
Oh, yes. Your sound cut out. I can't hear you even right now. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting, this idea that you cast a lot of people kind of off the street, non-actors, and that's something that's can always result in kind of an interesting dynamic on screen. But as a filmmaker, when you're approaching, the woman at the mall that you think has an interesting look, I mean, how do they react to you saying, "Hey, look, I might want you to be in a movie"? Are people
You can
skeptical or?
you get a wide range of reactions. Some people just look at you like you're full of shit, but most people are kind of interested. But the majority of them don't call me back. I don't ask for their number. I always give them mine, and I'd say
Oh
maybe
wow,
20% get back to me. But also, film is on a kind of an urgent schedule where it's like if I tell someone this and I'm looking to cast this, I hope they're going to call me back in a few hours. But a lot of average person is like they get back to me 2 weeks later. Oh, hey, remember I met you in the mall? And it's like, man, that's that ship has sailed. But on the film, we have just obviously had a lot of development time. So I was able to get in touch with more of them. But yeah, sometimes people are also worried that you're making fun of them or judging them, perhaps, or why me? A lot of people ask, and it's just honestly, it's not anything other than the fact there is something attractive or appealing or charismatic about them. Period. It's looking for people that have a spark or a dynamism that is sort of indescribable. And it doesn't matter what shape their face or body is or color their eyes are. Some people just have something that draws you into them and makes you want to look at them more for a wide range of reasons. And that's who I'm drawn to. And then comes the challenge of getting a performance from them. But that's a different story and question.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your kind of supporting outside of our kind of lovely couple. But I mean, you have kind of an interesting supporting cast of like Michael Madsen, Rosanna Arquette, and Wayne Newton and things like. What did you have relationships with before? I mean, when you with what you described, I mean, all of them have like unique kind of presence in the way that they live, walk, or on screen. So how in the world did you wind up casting these kind of interesting, actors to kind of fill these roles? And
Well, it's I had a very clear idea of each of the characters, but I had a very limited budget. So it took a lot of meditating on who could work and deep digging, but also keeping in mind who's going to represent this character and express this character perfectly, but also still have a following. Because at the end of the day, I still want people to see the film, and I want the investors to make some money back, and I want it to do well. So it's finding people that can do the job, but also have a draw or generate some interest in the film. We had a really great casting director, Jory Whites.
hmm.
He proposed a lot of ideas. Hopper was his idea. As soon as I met Hopper, I knew he was perfect. Bree in the hot tub, she was street cast in Idaho. Actually, I shot all the hot tub stuff in Idaho. Her mom was the front desk receptionist at the hotel I was staying at that I booked on Hotwire, which is totally random. Like, you don't know what hotel you're going to get. And I saw behind the desk, she had a bunch of DVDs, and I just complimented her on that. And she said, "Oh yeah, I love movies, so I bring all my DVDs in here." And she just worked there. And she's like, "If you want one, you can borrow one there for guests." And I told her I was there casting for shooting some scenes for a film, and I described the character I was looking for, and she said, "You should meet my daughter." And that's how the Bree in the hot tub was cast.
Oh wow.
Um, Cowboy, I know, that's my cousin Danny, who is a former kickboxer, a badass, tough as nails, rough around the edges, drinking, gambling, fist fighting guy. And, there's a number of action stars that were initial references, but they're all $1 million. And just digging through the list of ideas, came across Cowboy, and his true autobiography is almost completely aligned with the real Danny. Cowboy has like 40 criminal convictions. He worked construction for a long time, and started as a kickboxer. So there wasn't too much of a transformation required. Wayne Newton was actually, I just had a brainwave driving one day that I wanted him to sing a song for the film. So the producer reached out. They asked to see the script, and we heard back right away. Wayne said, and his manager said, Wayne loves the script. He'll do a song under the condition he can play a character in the film. He loves the script and wants to be in it. So that's how Wayne got in it. And he's just the nicest man in the world. And one of my highlights of the whole production and everything was going in the recording studio in Las Vegas to record the song with Wayne, which Butch Vig recorded. But Wayne and his wife, Kat, picked my girlfriend and I up from the Vegas airport in his Cadillac Stretch Escalade. And, that's kind of as cool as it gets, getting picked up in Vegas airport, McCarran by Mr. Las Vegas. So, and then Rosanna, she's just charismatic. I was a big fan of Buffalo 66 growing up, and a number of films she was in, and I just thought she'd be a perfect fit for it as well.
I think you get a sense that everybody you see on screen is kind of bought into the world that you wanted to create, and seem to kind of, fit naturally in there, there's just a little bit of kismet, I guess, going on. I'm sure some folks, in the audience would be kind of curious, what it was like working with Hopper Penn. I mean, obviously, as kind of being from this kind of acting family, what was it? This was one of kind of his first feature roles, I believe, right? And
his
so
first leading role. Yeah.
First leading role. And so how did you guys navigate it in the sense of, it's his first leading role, it's your first feature film. How did you kind of guys approach it in this kind of on-screen collaboration to kind of craft the film that you've made?
Well, as soon as you meet him, he has an immediate, very, very strong magnetism to him. He has those like glass blue eyes that are piercing, very unique structure, and he's also very sweet and calm, gentle soul, which was very similar to the character the film's based on. Now, preparing for this film, I knew the most important thing for me as a director was to make sure that the performances were perfect and great. Any sort of false beat in the performance, I know, will discredit a whole film. So I obsessively studied the craft of acting for like a year and a half leading up to this film. I mean, I read every single thing Stella Adler's ever written, Lee Strasberg, Uta Hagen, Harold Klerman. Like, I just read everything. And Meisner, I never went to any classes, but I read and noted and detailed and reread every single piece of text I could find on the craft that was, highly regarded. So I felt like I had a pretty thorough understanding of acting, and I conceptualized a lot of my own techniques and exercises for actors because I knew I'd be working with non-actors as well, and really worked collaboratively with all of them. Hopper, I really wanted him to like melt into the role. I didn't want him to just show up and then just draw from convention, when we're dealing with sort of this working class, disinherited class of people, there's all these cliches that we all have of, white trash, and they're bullshit, to be honest. And I didn't want anyone to fall back on those. So it's very important to me. Cowboy came really early as well, for them to spend time with the real people in these worlds. Hopper worked as a dishwasher 3 days a week in the restaurant we filmed in. He lived with the guy it was based on. He adapted his eating habits, his sleeping habits, his dating habits, his everything. And they just did everything together all day, every day, so that it felt like we were bringing the film crew and camera into his world rather than him being picked up and set, at a hotel in a van and dropped off on set. It was more like we were coming to him every day. So he was all in it. You could, throughout that month of shooting or few weeks of shooting, sometimes you couldn't even tell it was Hopper or the character in the film. It was weird, actually. And, credit to him. I think he did a really brilliant job because he's nothing like the character in the film. And everyone's, when they watch it, the best compliment I hear and that he hears is when people say, wow, how did you find someone so close, so perfect for that role, so exactly like that? It's like, no, he's nothing like that. So that shows that he did it.
That's so fascinating to know, just in the sense of, obviously it's a little bit of an unorthodox way of, making a film, but also it's kind of a testament to how much, he bought into, this kind of idea behind the film you made. I mean, coming from, music video background, what was the production process? How was it different? I mean, I think of like, music videos outside of, larger budgets is that they're so kind of heavily kind of choreographed and visualized ahead of time. I mean, was there a lot of kind of impromptu decisions that you're having to make on the set while
Oh,
making?
there's way more impromptu on a music video.
Oh, really?
Music video, you pick up a lot of bad habits, and you have a lot of escape routes with camera tricks and flares and rollouts and jump cuts and stuff. Film like this, it's where you're staging action and blocking scenes and designing shots. You have to be really, really precise. You have to transition scenes properly, get in and out of them the right way. You have to transfer from one actor to the other. And that's all a choreography between the cinematographer, the camera operator, myself, the actors, sometimes the art department. So I was really, really studious and precise with planning this film to make it look not planned. That's the other thing is I didn't want to leave much to chance and wing it and just fling a camera around like you do on a music video. I really wanted to be specific and know what I want and do a lot of pre-visualization and planning and then get it. Because when I'm on set, at least for me, I get stressed out if I don't know exactly what I need. And I don't think so well when I'm stressed. In fact, I become very, very basic as far as how my mind functions. And I resort to fundamentals like, okay, get a close up, get a two shot, get a wide shot. I think because there's so much coming at you as a director, every little thing, you got your AD up your ass and you got producers talking to you and the makeup artist in your face, talking about things. It's so much that I've experimented on music videos actually since doing this film, where I've said, okay, I'm going to try doing a music video and winging it and just sort of freestyling, and it doesn't work for me. I have to prepare every detail.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for sharing. And I think the kind of making and kind of your approach to the film is as interesting as the film itself. So, and this has just been a real pleasure to chat with you. Maybe this is a good way to kind of segue. Before we started the Q&A, you were kind of talking a little bit about what a filmmaker's life is like nowadays during the pandemic. Can you kind of talk a little bit about this kind of inherent life that you live and what's kind of next for you if out there in considering your next project?
Yeah, so when we wrapped Puppy Love, I was living in Edmonton for 2 years writing and preparing for that film. I moved out and have been living in Airbnbs ever since. So I went from there to LA to work on on the edit, but I haven't had a fixed address since. My girlfriend and I and my dog move around together. We don't, our stuff is stored in storage, and have been living out of suitcases.
4 years, right?
Yeah, almost 4 years. It was May, 3.5 years ago that happened. So it's been a long time, but I love it, and it's an adventure. It's a never-ending adventure. And when COVID started last February, I moved back to Edmonton from Los Angeles to just sort of be safe and figure out what was going on. And I started writing, and I've written 3 scripts since COVID started. And then in the fall, I went to Europe for some festivals that Puppy Love was screening at. And now I'm in Texas, in San Antonio. I'm writing a Western, and I just was in Mexico for a couple weeks. It's a Western set in Mexico and the Wild West. So I'm sort of soaking up the atmosphere and the people and the vernacular and the history, and going to museums and galleries and interviewing people, and just really immersing myself in the work for this next script.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for sharing Puppy Love with us, Michael. And what's the best ways for our audience to kind of continue to kind of follow you and Puppy Love's trajectory on social media and things?
Well, I'm my website's michaelmaxis.com, and my IG handle is just michaelmaxis is one word. And Puppy Love is Puppy Love Movie or Puppy Love the Movie. Um, and I was updating it quite a bit with the festival stuff, but I haven't been lately, and I don't know. I'm terrible at this. I don't even know how to use Instagram barely. Hang on. Okay, well, yeah, it's Puppy Love. Here we go. Now I got it. Puppy Love Movie is the Puppy Love one, and we've got some cool things going on actually with the film, and working on a couple little. The version that you're going to be screening has a few things different than what's ultimately going to be released commercially in a few months. So this is a sort of a last chance to see the sort of director's cut of the film is with at SF Indie Fest, and there'll be a slightly altered version coming out in a few months.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Michael. Good luck with the film, and it's just nice and surreal and just kind of a fun ride. So have a great day.
Okay, hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks, Chris. Great questions.
Thanks.
See you, man. All right.